We remain standing, ladies and gentlemen, as we observe the university anthem. The university anthem. In love, peace, and harmony, we shall build our tower, uniloring. Hear thy clarion call, in unity we grow, committed to the seat of learning, our hearts from vanity, standing firm in wisdom, in knowledge and in truth, we honor your virtues, uniloring. You stand in strength and pride, learning, winning, building, praying, showing the way for all who yearn, making a future for the ones who follow, rising high. We must never turn, Ilari, uniloring. Your touch has guided us upwards and onwards, Ilari, uniloring. Our alma mater we sing. Thank you very much, everyone. Please be seated.
Welcome to the 297th Inaugural Lecture on the University of Ilorin. From work to thriving development, the transformation power of adult learning and education for sustainable futures. Will the inaugural lecturer please stand? Our inaugural lecturer was born on the 11th of September 1957 in Osogbo, Osun State. Though an indigenous of Ilawe, Ekiti State. He started his primary school education at Masifa DC Primary School, Ogbomoso, in 1964 and completed his studies at St. James's Primary School, Osogbo, in 1979. He attended St. Charles Grammar School, Osogbo, between 1970 and 1974 and the Divisional Teachers Training College, Oye Ekiti, obtaining the teacher's grade 2 certificate from the Ministry of Education in 1977. Another lecturer gained admission to the University of 1973 and obtained his head educational management stroke body in 1982. Economics of Education in 1985 and PhD Adult Education in 1988, all from the University of Ibadan. Our inaugural lecturer joined the services of the University of Maiduguri as a graduate assistant in the Department of Continuing Education and Extension Services in 1983. He rose through the ranks to become a professor of adult and non-formal education management in 1998. He transferred his service to the University of Ilorin in the Department of Adult and Primary Education in 2014. Our inaugural lecturer of today has successfully supervised several undergraduates, over 40 Master of Science degree and 14 PhD students. He is a member of many learned and professional bodies, which include Nigerian National Council for Adult Education, Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria, and New York Academy of Science. He currently serves on the boards of trustees of the Nigerian National Council for Adult Education and the Community Development Support Initiative. He has served in various capacities within and outside the university, and these include member, Governing Council, University of Maiduguri, 2009 to 2013. Dean, Faculty of Education, University of Maiduguri, 2004 to 2008. Head, Department of Continuing Education and Extension Services, 1992 to 1995. Director, Institute of Education, University of Ilorin, 2020 to 2021. Director, Center for Open and Distance Learning, University of Ilorin, 2014 to 2017. Visiting Research Fellowship at Japan Institute of Developing Economics, Tokyo, Japan, 1992 to 1993. He was also visiting professorial appointed at Bayero University, Kano, 2010 to 2011, and visiting professor at Usman Danfodiyo University, Sokoto, 2023 to 2024. I was not there. There are so many of them. Our lecture has over 80 publications in reputable national and international journals, edited conference proceedings, and chapters in books. He has attended various local, national and international conferences and served as external examiner and assessor to many universities across the country. He was honored as one of the 50 distinguished graduates of the Faculty of Education, University of Ilorin, during his 50th anniversary celebration recently. He is happily married to his wife of the Department of Counselor Education, University of Ilorin, and the union is blessed with many children and grandchildren. I welcome to give his inaugural lecture, Professor Ayodele Anthony Fajayomi.
God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. The Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Academics, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Management Services, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Research Technology and Innovation, the Registrar, the Bursar, the University Librarian, of the University Career President, the Provost College of Ethics, Deans of Faculties, particularly Dean of Education, heads of department, particularly the head of adult education, directors of various units, professors and other members of Senate, academic, administrative and technical staff of the university, my law, spiritual and temporal, esteemed invited guests, University of Ilorin students, particularly students of the Department of Adult and Primary Education, gentlemen and ladies of the print and electronic media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. To God be glory for making this 19th day of February 2026 a reality. As I reflected, I cannot fail to remember surviving a motor accident in 2001, shortly before the announcement of my professorship in 2002. Though backdated to 1998, after 4 years of waiting and all arrears paid. And yet another incident in 2011 on traveling back to Maiduguri after completing a sabbatical leave at Bayero University, Kano. My journey with the University of Ilorin secondarily began in 1981 during a visit with my late friend Dele Ogushetire of the Abato Construction Company that built the chemistry block and several other structures. While crossing the bridge at today's dam site, I was struck by the serenity and tourism potential of the environment, and I expressed a desire to start my career here in Ilorin. As my life is in God's hand and He directs as He wills, He first led me to the University of Maiduguri after 31 years, 4 months and 20 days, brought me back, and I'm privileged to conclude my academic career at this institution. This was made possible under the Vice Chancellorship of Professor Abdulgani, from the University of Maiduguri in the 2014-2015 section.
You cannot continue this thing. University has a record.
Mr. Vice Chancellor. A related chapter in my professional life involved the proposed and submitted inaugural lecture to balancing the national education system for sustainable development to the University of Maiduguri Senate Publication Committee in 2013-2014 section. However, due to the insecurity that plagued the Northeast region, including Borno State, a date was never assigned. Bali and I made the difficult decision to leave the University of Maiduguri summarily, as we no longer endure the security threats and growing insecurity, which had untold effects on our health, social relations, and productivity. These life experiences shaped a renewed research focus and directly inspired the new title of this lecture, From Wobbling to Thriving Development, the Transformative Power values and attitudes that complement and supplement formal schooling or school education. Indeed, every workshop, seminar, conferences, such as UC plus conferences, constitute a form of early program, regardless of the participant demographic profile. It is a clear indication that all is an embodiment of knowledge and learning is lifelong, and as such, everyone is an adult learner at one or other. Curriculum and minimum academic standards show that components are diverse. Program types include literacy and digital education, community development, social development, and extension services, political education, industrial and labor services, distance education, leadership, and administration. Physiological and functions to sustain individual livelihood, community president, and national development. These processes include risk assessment, data center recognition of prior planning, flexibility, quality assurance, pathways into formal certification. Mostly, effective action response to labor market signals, public crisis, and social needs. On completion of early programs, trainees will become adult educators and literacy educators, vocational trainers and apprentice supervisors, corporate trainers, learning and development specialists, community development officers, curriculum designers and e-learning specialists, HR and trainers, NGO, program officers, M&E, and policy and entrepreneurs who transform training into business. Global and learning education is not merely linear, it is a strategic imperative. It underpins Sustainable Development Goal 4 and intersects directly with SDG 1, SDG 3, SDG 5, SDG 8, and SDG on development. Mr. Vice Chancellor, starting with the basics, to every student of economics of adult education, a course of almost 4 decades. Development is broader and deeper than growth. While growth is quantitative and structural concept repeating increase in size of an object or subject like any, development is a qualitative, unceasing process that is throughout encompasses physical, mental, emotional, and social changes or degree of awareness of a nation, individual, or an entity. Sir, you will agree with me that it is possible for a country to earn more and still likely be poor and unwell. Mr. Vice Chancellor, on wobbling development, it is understood through 3 interrelated lenses. First, it reflects a skilled match between the complex demands of the contemporary global economy and the competencies available within the workforce and communities. Second, it denotes inequity, where development aids routinely circumvent the most vulnerable, creating social fragmentation and fueling instability. Public development arises from a policy fatigue, a recurrent pattern in which national programs lose momentum, implementation becomes erratic, or initiatives continued altogether because the foundational human capacity remains insufficient to sustain them. Private development. Mr. Vice Chancellor, if wobbling development reflects fragility, inconsistencies, and the inability to convert opportunities into sustainable progress, then private development stands as its robust and compelling opposite. Thriving development is neither accidental nor episodic. At its core, there is the presence of four interlocking attributes, which, when mutually reinforcing, generate development outcomes that endure across generations. These attributes, human capability, institutional strength, economic diversification, and social cohesion, collectively determine whether development efforts become permanent fixture or short-lived initiatives that disappear with political circles. See figure 1. Mr. Vice Chancellor. Taken together, these four attributes form a conceptual architecture of thriving development, which may be illustrated using the pyramid model of thriving development. Figure 1. Adult learning and education as engine of transformation. It is argued that societies do not fail primarily because of the absence of resources or policies, but because of limited human capacity to understand complexity, manage trade-offs, and sustain collective progress. Sir, my submission in this lecture and by the framework is that adult learning and education addresses this deficit directly. This framework is anchored in the triple bottom line TBL model proposed by Ed Clinton in 1994. The TBL identifies three interdependent factors, which are people or society, economic, planet, or environment. These three factors form a delicate triad. When one factor is prioritized at the expense of the others, development becomes unstable, uneven, and fragile. But when they are harmonized, development becomes inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. Mr. Vice Chancellor, as the central proposition of these lectures affirm that adult learning and education is the intervening and multiplicative force transforming wobbling conditions into thriving development, I stand here by the grace of God as the living testimony to his power and influence. Had I changed my course to agricultural economics in 1979, only God knows what part my life might have taken. Sir, by the grace of God and the benevolence of adult learning and education, I have visited 3 continents and 8 countries, including Japan, the UAE, the UK, and Rwanda. Beyond the personal, its broader impact is illustrated mathematically and in diagram in the sequence that follows. Mathematical equations. Mr. Vice Chancellor, 2 distinct equations are used to illustrate the critical role of adult learning and education as the catalyst for the transformation. 1. The wobbling development equation, expressed as W is equal to U into B, bidirectional arrows into E, bidirectional arrows into N. In this model, the 3 pillars exist in constant disagreement. Instead of reinforcing one another, they compete for resources and dominance. This vision resonates with the lyrics of Ebenezer Obey, Emi Oga, Iwo Oga, Longa Kiti, as well as Fela. I don't agree. For to Bongri, la 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 la. This equation demonstrates when Ali is into the primary mediating variable, its transformation occurs from a state of conflict to one of harmonious relationship. This is mathematically expressed as E is equal to I into B plus E plus N and multiplied by ALA. In development is no longer a series of isolated but a harmonious movement. Adult learning and education acts as the multiplicative mediator, providing the skills and knowledge align human needs with economic growth and sustainability. That is, by resolving the conflict of interest with the integration of Ali, we can now sing Ejeka Jo Leso Leso Ejeka Jo Leso Leso. Let us move together gently, step by step, a rhythmic, inclusive movement where every citizen is a stakeholder in progress. Pragmatic representation. Figure 2. The Vice Chancellor, sir. Figure 2 is provided to accommodate those who may be apprehensive about mathematical illustration and to sharpen the central thesis of this lecture. Ali is positioned in the figure as a critical intervention point, highlighting its role as the engine that stabilizes development processes and directs them towards sustainability. My contribution to the body of knowledge in adult learning and education. The discourse is built upon 8 interrelated truths rooted in research, knowledge, and practice. 1. The Vice Chancellor, sir. The discussion so far is suggestive, and that is, Ali must be recognized not as a peripheral social service, but as the stabilizing engine of sustainable and private development. This position was first established in my doctoral research, Socio-economic determinants of adult literacy performance in basic education classes in Borno State, Nigeria in 1988. It was empirically demonstrated that adult literacy constituted an essential prerequisite for socio-economic transformation and sustainable development in both rural and urban areas, with 22.9% and 23.8% contribution respectively. The argument was further strengthened in adult education for sustainable development livelihoods and building a culture of democracy, Fajr 2013, which articulated adult learning and education as a critical instrument for empowering citizens, sustaining livelihoods, deepening democratic values, and enhancing societal resilience. Literacy as a stabilizer. Mr. Vice Chancellor, for emphasis, most decisive program in the transition of information poverty to development competence remains literacy. My work, most notably, the monograph on the power strike on development initiatives, Fajr 2009, as well as the area research on functional literacy interventions, illustrate how literacy acts as a profound stabilizer. Literacy as basic literacy, functional literacy, cultural literacy, environmental literacy, political literacy, cultural literacy, equips individuals with the competencies required for meaningful economic and social participation, directly translated into improved health, enhanced productivity, advancement in technology, and stronger social cohesion. In this sense, literacy functions as the primary lever that transforms wobbling social systems plagued by ignorance and misinformation into competent, capable structures of development. Figure 5 and 6 illustrate consequences of illiteracy. Here, illiteracy is shown not merely as the absence of schooling, but as a disabling factor that undermines the effective utilization of development initiatives and socio-economic services. Systems thinking. The Vice Chancellor, sir. One of the recurring explanations for the persistent wobbling condition of many African economic and institutions lies in the failure to appreciate development as a system. Consequently, system analysis has been deliberately applied to interrogate and strengthen organizational processes. For instance, systems thinking was deployed in field internal and external quality management mechanisms within the university system, with the aim of enhancing institutional effectiveness, efficiencies, and accountability. Fajomi, and Lambert in 2020. By conceptualizing quality assurance as an interconnected web of groups, processes, outputs, and feedback loops, rather than a series of isolated compliance exercises, the university system was better positioned to achieve coherence, continuous improvement, and stakeholder competence and confidence. Extending this lens to the broader development conversation, Fajomi and others demonstrated that the accelerated attainment of the sustainable development goals depends largely on taking education and sustainable development as an integrated system. Our study argued that lifelong learning, spanning childhood education, youth education, and adult education must be deliberately harmonized with formal, informal, and non-formal learning pathways. When treated as interdependent components of a single development ecosystem, education becomes powerful catalyst for sustainable transformation. Access, equity, and inclusion. A nation cannot attain thriving development while segments of its population remain marginalized on the basis of age, gender, ability, place of birth, or geographical location. Mr. Vice Chancellor, development that excludes is by its very nature unstable and wobbling. In particular, gender inequity remains a defining challenge in Nigeria. Evidence consistently shows that female children are disproportionately disadvantaged in access to basic education. These unequal and generally low participation of girls are the foundation level inevitably translate into reduced female representation at higher levels of education, and by extension, limited participation in the labor market and political space. No wonder female participation rate in the country's national assemblies is ridiculously 4.1%. Mr. Vice Chancellor, this perfectly mirrors the Yoruba proverb which says, Amoko, Eruewo, Oni Ewo Salemo. Compounding this challenge of gender imbalance is the low absorption capacity of schools, which partly explains the Nigerian persistently high population of out-of-school children, reportedly to be the highest globally, invariably making Nigeria the out-of-school children capital of the world. Similarly, persistent participation gaps between urban and rural schools continue to favor urban centers, thereby making social and economic inequalities that fuel wobbling development. In all, adult learning and education programs, especially open and distance learning, offers a media opportunities by expanding access, promoting equity, and fostering inclusivity for the underserved population. Quality education. Mr. Vice Chancellor, permit me to observe that the quality of education received by learners or program participants constitutes the basis of meaningful learning and sustainable development. Educational quality is fundamentally shaped by the quality of teachers and facilitators, the relevance of curriculum and instructional practices, the availability and suitability of instructional materials, the conduciveness of the learning environment, and funding. The Vice Chancellor, beyond physical learning conditions, the effectiveness of teaching is further shaped by the language of instruction. Permit me to draw attention to evidence from a quasi-experimental study conducted in 1993, which showed that taught through a mix of English, L2 and Hausa L1 performed better than those taught in English only and Hausa only. These findings affirm the educational value of blending English with learners' first languages, whether Hausa, Igbo, or Yoruba, to enhance understanding and participation. Indeed, certain concepts expressed in English are more clearly and quickly explained through learners' language environment. For instance, a teacher in a reader will have something like as white as snow. Somebody who is to the north, who has never seen a snow, how will he know, how can he compare it with whiteness? But instead, it is expected for a teacher to say, "Oh, fufu be egma." Fufu be egma. Everybody has seen fufu before, and that is expected that the students or learners will be able to relate with what we have in the environment. In this light, the recent policy to discourage the use of first languages, even alongside English, at all levels of instruction, deserve careful consideration. However, before any national adoption, a comprehensive evidence-based nationwide investigation is early strategy for conflict prevention. Mr. Vice Chancellor, it is incontrovertible that conflicts constitute one of the most persistent barriers to private and sustainable development in a society like ours. We have seen violent conflicts disrupting learning systems, destroying livelihoods, weakening social trust, and undermining institutional stability. Within this context, ADI is recognized as a critical intervention for conflict prevention and the promotion of safe learning environment, especially within formal and non-formal education spaces. In a practical application, Akali, Ambali, and Fajol in 2024 highlighted the role of skill organizers in embedding safety and conflict sensitivity into program design and implementation. We advise introduction of non-formal self-defense and safety training, which equip learners or students with practical skills to recognize threats, avoid danger, and protect themselves physically and mentally. I think, Mr. President, it is time to introduce karate or kung fu. For example, on empirically interpreting university leadership policy, as well as leadership selection and recruitment procedures in Nigeria, I find out that processes are frequently embedded in intrigues, maneuverings, and contested succession, with emphasis on impressive curriculum. Overshadowing the qualitative attributes that sustain effective governance like ethical judgment, emotional intelligence, personal integrity, and capacity to mobilize collective personal integrity, and the capacity to mobilize collective purpose. Also, it was revealed that when leadership is narrowly construed as administrative competence, governance becomes transactional, while authority loses its moral legitimacy and institutional coherence begins to develop. However, on dynamic leadership in Nigerian universities have found that institutions regain stability and direction when leadership is anchored in shared values, adaptability, inclusive and participatory decision making, where authority is stewardship rather than dominance or dominant over. Research, monitoring, and evaluation. No nation, and indeed no individual, can survive or sustain economic development without evidence-based research culture and strong inbuilt monitoring and evaluation mechanism. Research is very fundamental expected to generate knowledge that enhances understanding of what works, why it works, for whom it works, and under what conditions and under what conditions, thereby fostering stable and thriving development. However, Mr. Vice Chancellor, my experience and empirical observations reveal that the paucity of credible data has rendered these interrelated processes implicitly difficult, time-consuming, and costly. Even more troubling is that attempts rely on limited available data often generate outcomes that are unhelpful, misaligned with the problems at hand, and in many cases counterproductive. Rather than addressing core developmental challenges, such outcomes tend to produce policy inconsistencies and program inefficiencies that contribute to wobbling development. This scenario may explain why our country appears to be making several moves with little significant progress to show. Contribution to university development. Vice Chancellor, sir, my career in academia is inseparable from my service to two great institutions, the University of Illinois and the University of London. My contributions span decades, moving from classroom to the highest echelons of institutional governance, always driven by the mandate to enhance